Hi, my name is Jen Gennerman. I'm the Instructional Data Specialist for the School District of Waukesha. Tonight, I'll be sharing information on the accountability report cards. The purpose of this report is to share an overview of the school and district report cards, share our results as a school and district, and then also report out on our key performance indicators as they relate to these report cards. Prior to jumping into our district and school results, I wanted to share a little bit more about what is offered from DPI in regards to the accountability report cards. Over the last few years, there have been some changes, whether it's in the calculations or the overall design of the report cards. School and district report cards have been provided since the 2012-13 school year. Since then, there have been some changes. In 2018-19, report cards started to include ACT Aspire results for the very first time. When this data was used, data went from 3 or even 5 years back was used in some of the calculations for achievement and growth. In 2019-20, a new format was designed, and so it was only a preliminary report card that was in draft form that was shared internally with districts. In the 2020-21 school year, the new format was complete. DPI also offered a statement of caution when interpreting the data and also provided an option for districts to provide an optional narrative on each report card. During the 2021 school year, the report cards from these school years also had a few other changes. The priority area of closing gaps was replaced by target group outcomes, and the overall accountability ratings were revised. You'll see here over on the left, there's a little bit more information about how the overall accountability ratings were revised. What had changed is that the minimal expectation of exceeds expectations was lowered to 70. Prior to this year, the minimal score requirement was 73. Now bringing us to the report cards from the 2021-22 school year. I'm happy to report there's been minimal design changes. One of the calculation changes is that now there is a requirement that students must be enrolled for 90 days for any course or program data calculations. Here's a sample on the left of a school or a district report card. They'll both have a very similar look. On the right, I'm highlighting two of the resources that I've used for this presentation, along with a few other resources that DPI has provided. Two of these resources I want to highlight are first, the report card at a glance, and then the data at a glance. For the in-person board meeting, I'll be providing a hard copy of these resources for all the board members. On the left is the sample report card. At the very top, you will see the school or district overview with that optional narrative. Next, you will see the student data and student groups. The next section is really all about the summary score, where it has the overall score, the rating, whether it meets expectations or meets significantly meets expectations. And then you'll also have the priority area weights. I do want to remind everyone that the priority area weights can be different for each district and each school within one district. We'll talk a little bit more about that as we look at our results. The bottom half of the page is all designated to the priority area scores. We have the priority areas are achievement, growth, target group outcomes, and on track to graduation. Let's take a look at the district results. Here, just like in the sample, you'll see that we have the overview which entails the district details and student groups. As a district, we opted to draft a narrative and have that on each of our report cards, and you'll see that here. The next area I'll highlight is the student groups. 15% of our student population are students with disabilities, and almost 35% are economically disadvantaged, and just about 8% are English language learners. You'll see here too that out of the 11,000 students that we serve, 62% of the student population are white and 24% are Hispanic or Latino. For our score summary, our overall score was a 67.7, which puts us in the meets expectation category of having 3 stars. You'll then notice on the lower right here, our priority area weights. So every priority area is weighted about the same here for our district, with each being about 25%. Depending on the percentage of economically disadvantaged for the district or individual school, these priority area weights may shift. Oftentimes, the higher the economically disadvantaged percentage of students, the higher the weight is given to growth. So let's look at our priority areas as a district. Achievement is the first one that I'll be talking about in the upper left. The district score was 59.6. The purpose of this area is to show how the level of knowledge and skills of students in the district or school compares to the state academic standards. This priority area measures English language arts and math performance of all levels of students in grades 3 through 11 as part of the Wisconsin assessment system. The assessments used include Forward, ACT Aspire, ACT, and Dynamic Learning Map, which is an alternative assessment to the ACT and Wisconsin Forward assessment. To reduce year-to-year fluctuation in test scores, up to 3 years of the most recent test data are used. Since statewide assessments were not administered in 2019-20, the student outcomes from the 2018-19 school year, the 2020-21 school year, and the 21-22 school year were used. I also want to mention that this priority area factors in the full academic year students that were tested. Let's shift over a little bit to growth. The purpose of this area is to give schools and districts a single measure that summarizes how rapidly their students are gaining knowledge and skills from year to year. Our score was a 64.1. This area factors in scale scores from 2017-18, 18-19, 2021, 21-22 on the Forward, ACT Aspire, and ACT assessments. Again, full academic year students' test results are factored into this. While the calculations on all areas of the report card are very complex, growth as a priority area is the one area that I get the most questions in. So I want to take a little bit of time to talk just specifically about value add growth. Let's look at the figure on the left. Value add growth looks at the calculation of student growth compared to average or similar students. Starting with last year's assessment scores, identifying what average growth for similar students has been. When the student's actual performance is higher than the average growth, a student grew at a faster rate than average, which is what they call value add growth. You'll see the chart on the right shows the opposite. When the student doesn't hit that predicted or average growth, the student grew at a slower rate than average. Oftentimes, I get questions about growth and if it's really factored if students move from below basic to proficient, And that can be what happens for a student, but it really all depends on that average growth. And so this is a chart that I share with principals to help explain what the value add growth is throughout for all educators in our system. Now, now that we've covered achievement and growth, let's return to all the priority area scores and look at the last two. Target group outcomes and on track to graduation. The target group outcomes is determined by prior performance rather than demographic association. This group is roughly the bottom quartile of performers using the prior year's state assessment results. The district score was 63 in the target group outcomes, and they look at achievement, growth, chronic absenteeism, and graduation. If we look over at the right, our on track to graduation score was 84.3. The purpose of this priority area is to measure how successful students are at hitting certain milestones throughout their education. Milestones include third grade ELA and eighth grade math, along with chronic absenteeism and graduation rate. You'll notice that for the on track to graduation priority area, as well as growth and achievement, we have our district scores as well as scores of the state. So you can see how we did compare to the state performance. While these are all very important numbers, there are also numbers that we look at that are in more detailed reports of the school report card. And I want to share a little bit more about that. So on each report card in each priority area, the school will have a statement or in a chart that summarizes how the school's results compare to schools in the state. So this is an example of one of the charts. So for this school, we're looking at the growth priority. The school score was the same or higher than 81.1% of K-5 schools in the state, which is pretty remarkable. So these are things that we like to celebrate beyond just the overall score in priority areas. So congratulations goes to Hawthorne Elementary School for meeting this celebration in the area of growth priority. Before I share a few more celebrations, let's look at our overall scores for the district. At the elementary level, the overall scores range from 59.7, meets expectations, to 90, which is significantly exceeds expectations. You'll see here on the right is that accountability rating categories that was shared earlier in the presentation. Waukesha STEM Academy is a K-8 school, so it is listed as its own category on the next slide. I'll give you a moment to look at all the elementary results before I move on. All right, so moving on, we have at the very top of this slide is the elementary secondary where we have Waukesha STEM. They had a score of 80.1, which exceeds expectations. Next, you'll see that our middle schools performed all within very close ranges of each other. They all fell within the meets expectation category. Our high schools are listed here. Since South High School has the Academy of Health and the Engineering Prep School, there are 3 different report cards. But since the students and staff really are within one complex, we have them listed out in one category. So you'll see how students performed at each school, but know that all students attend South Campus and have the same teachers, and it's often the same students that are attending both schools. When the district and school results were available for the public, we had a great communication plan that allowed the district to report out our results and communicate those to the public and share that in a press release. And the following day, the schools also shared these results that they had with their school communities. These results can also be found on our district website and the school websites. So let's talk a little bit more about a few celebrations. So Banting score in the area of growth was the same or higher than 98.8% of K-5 schools within the state. So kudos to Banting. Rose Glen scored the same or higher than 93% of the K-5 schools in the state in the area of achievement. Meadowbrook was also recognized for their achievement score. Their score was the same or higher than 88.1% of the K-5 schools in the entire state. Congratulations to these schools. Let's keep the celebrations rolling. Now that we've covered all the school and district report card results, and we have this information, we want to take an opportunity to share out on our teaching and learning reporting timeline for our key performance indicators. As shared earlier, we have these on our website, and specifically there's a teaching and learning dashboard where you can see all this information. After the in-person meeting on December 6th, we'll be updating the results related to these areas. One of our first key performance indicators is that 100% of our schools will meet expectations or higher on the DPI report card. We haven't reached that just yet, but we are at 96%. This includes the White Rock campus, STEM as one school. We have 2 additional schools who receive an alternative rating rather than a school report card. One of our other key performance indicators is that we will rank number 1 on the DPI report cards among the 10 largest districts in Wisconsin. You'll see here that we placed second with a score of 67.7 with meets expectations. Eau Claire is just a little bit ahead of us by 1 point. So we're hoping to gain that first place in the next report card. So we have a few more celebrations. Let's talk about these for a minute. So congratulations to Waukesha STEM Academy. The STEM Academy achievement score is the same or higher than 92% of the K-8 schools across the state. So awesome work to those students and staff. Waukesha Engineering Prep had an achievement score of 84.4, and this was the same or higher than 97% of the 912 schools across the state. Last but not least, Waukesha West High School is one to celebrate for their growth. This school score was the same or higher than 84.7% of schools across the state at the high school level. So congratulations to these schools and all other schools that have been celebrated throughout this presentation. If there's any questions, please feel free to reach out to myself. If you're looking for more information, this information and additional information will be on our website. Thank you.